We are overrated. This is overrated. What is overrated? Is it the hot summer, man? Like, I got my ventilator here. And I think we got an even hotter topic today because, you know, knowing our personalities and how we basically got to know each other, there's some, you know, sauce in there, right? So today we invited Elbion. He's a writer for .esports and recently also has produced a couple of videos. But would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure. So like you said, I'm a writer for .esports. I've been writing for them for almost a year now, and before that it was Gamers. And I do a little bit of YouTube content. And I think the series you were talking about was, I just did Snapshots in Time, where I talked to 5 different guests in order to kind of celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Overwatch. And it was supposed to just kind of put that the first year of Overwatch's like kind of existence as a game, as an esport, into context about how other games were doing, and just kind of show off and see where we are. We kind of walked away with Overwatch is doing pretty well considering its age. But besides that, I don't know, just doing work. I haven't put out much in the last week because I had exams, but hopefully I'm going to get back on the train and keep writing.
Nice. I think last time we had Volumal on, I tried to summarize his approach as sort of like looking at the underlying concepts that might take place and then kind of taking a shot in the dark. And I think, would you say it's fair to say that yours is more like the reverse engineer? So you look at how a team won and then try to explain that process. For instance, with your piece about Lunatic High, or even with your piece about, for instance, something like Diva, right? And sort of like try to find the reasoning why stuff is happening. Is that a fair assessment of the type of content you do?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't like to do a lot of predictive content because I just think it's so difficult to accurately make predictions, whether with the meta or who's going to win a given match. And hindsight is always 20/20, you know, so it kind of helps.
Why do you think that is? Like, I guess that's a very good entry to the discussion. Why do you think that is? Why is it so hard to make any predictions in the moment?
Because right now, I don't think anybody actually understands the game yet, basically. I'm sure that in another year, we're going to look back at what we're doing now and be like, what the hell are we doing? You know, we're going to learn so much about the game in the next year that what we're doing now is going to seem pretty outdated. And I think I've been met with a little bit of resistance from some people saying that. But, you know, you just look at every game ever, right? And every year something new happens and it completely changes the way we play the game. So right now, I just think there's so much variance within Overwatch results, especially when it comes down to predicting like certain maps, because you never know when a player is just going to like make a small mistake that they haven't made that mistake a million times yet. So they don't know they don't fix it preemptively yet. So I don't know. It's just, there's just so much variance, and there's a bajillion reasons besides just we haven't learned the game yet. You know, like especially with Apex, last season there was a ton of like upsets, and then kind of we look back and we go, well, maybe they weren't upsets actually. Maybe that was just the better team. So hindsight is just useful for having the correct context, I think.
Yeah, I guess we have the guy here that claims to know it all. So would you like to chime in there, Carol, and just like what's your idea when someone approaches you and says to you, what's going to happen in, for instance, Apex, or is there any way to make accurate predictions at the moment?
Nope, but I don't think it's only about the bad changes. It's mostly that right now we haven't seen probably all the talent in the scene. That's what I think. Like Apex Season 1 was what, like 4 months after the release of the game, the official release of the game, and ignoring all the beta tournaments and whatever. So in the first year of the game, people are still figuring the game out themselves, and then they start to slowly grind the top ranks and make it into teams. So you can't really be so certain that the Genji level you've seen right now being displayed in every corner of the world, it's the top Genji level that everyone will acquire in the history of Overwatch. I mean, these levels change so dramatically. Like, even if we talk about Tracers, where Tracer isn't the hero that has changed so much with patch changes, she hasn't been hit so hard. You see, for example, that what we consider a good Tracer back in the day Tailspin or whatever, can probably be considered a really moderate tracer with all this talent that has focused on maining and using that hero. For example, and maybe even now, Sun was probably one or two positions lower than what he used to be back in the day. For example, if we looked back, then we probably see Sun as the best tracer in the West, and probably like a top 3 in the whole world. But right now, maybe he's like top 4 or top 5. And I think that that's basically the biggest reason, because I mean, teams also try to figure out the metas and they evolve at the same time together. And maybe one of them will have an extra strategy that's going to work on some cases, and the others they don't know yet, and they will try to figure out. Like, for example, with Rogue, they had that triple DPS that no one figured out in the West, and then they went over to Apex and they got figured out in like 2 or 3 weeks, or at least they faced opponents that could handle them a lot better, because we also see Envy as almost on par with them with so little, preparation. So I think that's the biggest problem right now, that it's not really that the game is so variable and the game changes so fast that basically we haven't seen teams that have been focusing so much on this aspect where get all the big names, all the great talent in one team, and then focus on improving and reaching at that top level that we will see probably in 1 year or so. And I think that Lunatic High, for example, is going that way, and most of the Korean teams, they are way ahead in that direction, where they get their weaknesses. And this was something that Daimu pointed out, and I hadn't figured that much because I don't know the Korean ladder at all. I mean, they all say that it's really good, but the thing is that the weaknesses of the Eastern teams, especially the Korean teams, get figured out and get replaced fast. But the core, the other players remain the same, and then the team becomes stronger. Whereas in the West, we have situations where you change pieces within the team, but you don't change the problematic pieces. You change pieces that actually make your team a little bit more unstable.
The approach you just took with that, how did you come to that conclusion? What did the numbers talk to you, or did you look at the teams, what they're doing, or is there some historical context to the point?
Well, the thing is, that's what I'm trying to do right now. I have already addressed this issue with my afterwards files, which is like the prologue of what's about to come from me as a data analyst, where I'm trying to right now to set up a system where you have like these charts made for each player, and then you compare them to other players, so that when you look at a video, for example, at a VOD or whatever, a performance of someone in a specific tournament, you can also compare him to other players within that tournament, which right now is only relying on the eye test of someone and essentially what he considers like he can compare between the players, and obviously what he has seen in the tournament and all these things. So, for example, in Rogue situation, I saw that Nico was a really great Genji in the West, but when he moved over to Apex, then he didn't play Genji at all. And I consider this a really big weakness of them, because their mode of operation in the West was relying so much on Genji and the way that he unlocked many fights, that they moved over there and immediately like they kept him on D.Va for the most part. They didn't even consider like having him for 1 or 2 maps on Genji the whole duration. It was like he doesn't produce results, then he goes to D.Va. And this led me to believe, and probably it's true, but we will see in the future, that because the West doesn't have that many great Genji players, where they are at the level of who are you, or these players, they don't scream against them, they don't like have them in their team so as to fight against them and get better at them as a tracer, as a soldier, as whatever, because Genji has that finishing blow that can instantly kill someone and secure a kill, much more reliably than a tracer can, because a tracer is like doing poking damage, or that guy needs to be really low to get for him to go into and kill him. And I believe, for example, that if we had more great Genji players in the West, like at the level of Hwagyu, and teams played more with their Genji players, with strats and tactics, with Genji players, then we would see like the competition level that we're going to see, that we're probably seeing in Apex. And this is why I say that we lack right now the talent in the pool. I mean, in Korea, the infrastructure is there. The people are taking this game more seriously. If we see this kind of talent rising in the West as well, in those heroes, in those crucial heroes for me, then I probably think that competition will be much better and it will be a whole different case.
Is it a case of talent not being there, or is it a case of talent not being facilitated? So, for instance, if Shadowburn at some point made it to America, do we not think that he could be up there and practice with his team? And maybe he would have even been bought out by a Envious or something, right? So, what like is the talent not there, or is it not being facilitated correctly?
Maybe, but I don't know about Shadowburn. I mean, he's a wild card for me. We've seen him playing greatly in LANs, like for example the Overwatch World Cup, the MLG Vegas, and all this stuff, but I don't think he's been really tested against, constantly against other teams. So he's like a wild card that he can... I'm not sure if he was overperforming in those situations. That's what I'm saying. I mean, okay. I haven't seen his constant performance in tournaments thus far, and because of the ping disadvantage that he's playing at, then obviously even his online results can't be really measured as well as you probably would want.
What does your feeling say? Yeah, go ahead.
So I was going to say Shadowburn's kind of an interesting one, because Shadowburn is probably the one that people go to alongside Seagull for like those great Western Genji players. But Shadowburn is this player where I don't think if you brought him over to any Western team, he would necessarily succeed, because he's famous for, he like legitimately believes that he doesn't carry FaZe. Like back in the day when he was like literally 1v11 winning those matches for FaZe, he actually believed that he wasn't like the main carry for FaZe. He like believed that he was just part of this like team structure and like we all contribute, and it's like no, Shadowburn, you're just insane in carrying everybody. So at a certain point you also have to like consider the players' personalities, right? They have to want to buy into the system, and he bought into the system in this like really weird way where sometimes it's important to have your star player realize they're a star, right? And be like, okay, look, I'm gonna win this game for us, help me. But he just didn't believe that.
Okay, so you were actually tying this to real life. For instance, how FaZe allocates resources to him. Couldn't you just put him in front of like a carriage and just have him pull? The horse doesn't know that it's being a slave, right? So like, is it really?
Yeah, but it's more because it's not that they weren't giving him resources, but it's also that they would then go, oh, okay, well, hey, we're seeing other Genji players, flex onto D.Va when Genji's not needed, and Shadowburn would go, okay, cool, I'll play D.Va then. And then he doesn't do anything because he's Shadowburn and he's not on Genji, right? And if you have a talent like at that level, it gets to a point where you consider why take them off that hero. Like we see with Who Are You, right? Who Are You has like a 90% play rate or something on Genji. He just literally doesn't play anything else because he's so freaking good at it. And Luna Takai goes, it may not always be absolutely perfect for what we want to do, but he's so good and we can work around it and we can make it work.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem with FaZe. That Lunatic High has this approach. We can work with our strengths that make it work. Whereas FaZe Clan basically, right now, is the weakest positions of all the teams ever, because they were always playing with their own split on two continents. Well, two players, the DPS players, the carry players were playing with a ping disadvantage, and the other players were playing, for example, with no ping disadvantage. And for me, that affects the mentality of the players themselves. I mean, if you take Shadowburn and in the beginning and you put him in another team where he had no ping disadvantage and you moved him to America, probably his mentality would be so much different than it is right now, because I think the fact that he can't perform as well as he wants makes him think that essentially he's like a team player. I will do what I can do, and no one is playing around me because I'm playing with a ping disadvantage. No one is relying on me to have this carry performance, essentially, so I'm not relying on myself as well. I mean, how can he play projectiles heroes with 200 ping, for example? I mean, it's lucky shots most of the time. And even when they went into into MLG Vegas, for example, FaZe didn't have any kind of structure in their play. Like seriously, they didn't have any kind of structure. It was like, we're doing our thing and it's working. So it wasn't like they had a structure, a coach, or someone saying them, Genji, you're going to play that. And this is probably the reason behind all of this. FaZe Clan has no coach, as I recollect. I'm not sure if they acquired someone, but do you remember?
I don't think so. They don't even have a full roster right now, I don't think.
Right now, no, but still now, like, they never had a coach. They were like 6 guys that they were having a good time together, and they decided to go professional. And for some reason, they're still signed by FaZe, although FaZe has made little to no movements in promoting their own players, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the weirdest of situation. I mean, it's
maybe it's the aftershocks of, if you remember way back when, that team could have actually had Slasher on the team, right? Like, he was the dedicated support player. Maybe that authority echoed just stuck in the team now, but okay, so let's get into meat and potatoes. Full disclosure, like, I think Elbion and I are... Okay, Caracol, you weren't really part of an esport that was tormented by the Korean overlords, let's say, right? So you're like a blank
Who says it's tormented? It's a blessing. I'm wearing a Kespa t-shirt today. It's a blessing.
I wouldn't disagree.
I'm not sure if it's a blessing for the Western teams or for Korean teams. Because the recent answers of the Lunatic coach, where he was relying the whole success of the Korean scene upon the Western tournaments, the availability of Western tournaments, really made me think a lot how Koreans see their scene and how we see their scene. Because he actually said that if there are no tournaments in the West and Overwatch League does not succeed, then the Overwatch as an esport will die in Korea. So what do you get out of it, Elbion? Because we know that you are like this Korean enthusiast. I'm omitting the other word, but you haven't
G-rated esports.
G-rated,
I mean, this is like, I don't know. I mean, you're obviously saying that it's a blessing, but maybe it's a blessing for Koreans as well. How do you see it?
So when I say it's a blessing, I mean it's a blessing for the fans, actually. And also, I would also go out on a limb and say the Western scene, but mostly because whenever Korea as a country, as a culture, gets like super heavily involved into any esport, they go, they get into it and they get fully involved and they get very, very good. And it becomes really exciting to watch them play a lot of the time. So I think it's really good for the fans because they get a lot of really awesome players and really awesome teams they get to watch. And for the Western scene, a lot of the time, like in other games, like of League of Legends, it's the game I came from before Overwatch, there was this notion of like, we have to learn from the Koreans, right? You have to see what they're doing, like think about it and incorporate it into your own play. And there wasn't really ever a notion here in North America, like I need to watch European LCS and like learn from it. It was like, I'm going to go watch, OGN in Korea and learn from them and see what they're doing, even like blindly copy their champion pick without like considering why they're picking that champion, right? And it went to like a crazy level, and that's not the level you should take it. But I think that having this region that is stronger is always a good thing. I think having all the regions being like equal level isn't great because then there's no one region that everyone's kind of striving to match, and it gives people kind of a drive. Shoot, what was the second part of your question?
Like, how do you evaluate the statement of the Lunatic High where he said that the esports Koreans, the Korean esports scene in Overwatch is reliant on the Western scene, obviously. I mean, I don't know if I would. I don't think I agree with that. To be honest, I have no idea what's going on.
I don't think I would agree with that because the Koreans have played in like 4 or 5 at most, like on little online tournaments in the West. The Korean Overwatch scene has not really relied on the Western teams. The only way it's relied on the Western teams is bringing fans in, really. There's a ton of fangirls for the Envious players, right? Because obviously they won season 1 of Apex, but now they go over there, they have tons of fans. You know, the Cloud9 guys have some fans. You know, Seagull going over with NRG for season 1 of Apex. I mean, it's pretty obvious the reason you invite NRG is for the popularity, not because NRG was the most competitive team. So I think I kind of get what he's saying, is that it wouldn't be as popular without the Western audience essentially tuning in. But I don't believe at all that the Koreans would somehow like be worse or anything without the influence of the Western scene. Maybe like a couple small things. Like, you know, Rogue, of course, this season, of course, brought over triple DPS, and the Koreans played with it for a little while and then learned how to beat it eventually. And now we're seeing them kind of go back to a 3x2 setup. But if it dies in the West, I don't think it dies in Korea.
Does it have to do with prize money?
Basically, the prize money is really not that much.
Not in Overwatch, like in general, if the game succeeds. For example, like in League of Legends, Korea goes on and dominates all the tournaments they go and play. And maybe that's enough of a reason for the scene in Korea to advance, because you have like that carrot up there. And your horses go and try to reach that carrot.
The money.
Only a few would probably get that carrot, but you know, you have all those people that have this mentality, we're going for the carrot.
Isn't that essentially the very essence of the historical analysis we're doing here? Like, maybe more on an economic level, because I think what he's speaking from, if we look at the other esports, especially StarCraft and League of Legends, there was always this issue of, you know, the big bucks are actually mostly in North America to be made, right? And then towards the end of the Korean players would come over. I think also where this point sort of falls flat now is that because of certain community sites and as well as player personalities and, you know, the increasing amount of Korean players actually talking decent English, this construct of faceless Koreans doesn't seem to be a thing in Overwatch. So if we're talking economically, I don't think that he's completely correct here, because I think the scene, if it doesn't succeed in the West, that doesn't mean that the West doesn't therefore care about Overwatch in Korea, right?
Yeah. And especially there's a difference between the organizations caring and paying money to, you know, pay players and stuff, and the fans still watching. I think, you know, if suddenly Cloud9 dropped the roster, you know, for example, I don't think that suddenly all the fans would just stop caring about all the players on Cloud9, right? They would still be interested in watching these players stream or where they go for the next team. But even with, like you said earlier, with like going for the carrot at the like tournament, you know, trying to win that whatever prize pool, it's pretty famous within the Korean scene. Like, there was an interview done, I want to say like maybe 6 months ago, with Faker, who's a very well-known player in League of Legends. He's won a ton of money, winning tons of, you know, Worlds and OGN seasons. And he basically said that like he takes like a small stipend out of his own salary and tournament winnings and just gives the rest to his family. And that's actually pretty common for a lot of Korean esports pros who make it. I mean, famously, that's why Kaiser came over to Cloud9 now.
Yeah.
He came over because he's going to send money back to his family. So I don't think that for the Korean scene, at least, money is a motivating factor. I think if you look at the North American scene, money's definitely a motivating factor.
Oh, we got him. We got him. Because, like, okay, sort of revealing our backline talks is me and Caracol, and I have a pretty strict or strange way to look at the esports structure, because I really don't care how much players make. I don't derive enjoyment from the added star power or weight of the competition just because there's money involved. For me, it is not about money whatsoever. Like, there's no added pleasure I get out of it. And I do agree that to a certain extent, that is also true for Koreans. And for instance, if you're looking at the Kaiser case, that is very different, right? He's not going over to North America because he wants that sweet NA cash. He goes over there because he has actual problems to solve, real life problems that are only fixable by, you know, supporting your family financially. So even that argument floats flat. My secret theory is, if you look at just all the esports, most or very often, it actually makes it worse. Like,
having a lot of money.
Yes.
I agree. And that was what I was saying, is I don't think the Korean scene is motivated by the money. I think they're motivated by the competition itself, by just wanting to be the best. Because so many of the players are famous for just like giving away all their earnings, anyways.
Yeah, but the thing is, why the coach then would support something like this? He's in the scene, for example. He's probably even feeling anxious about his position if he has this kind of sentiment. Like, he's probably the coach of the most revered and the best team in Korea, and he's feeling anxious. It's not like, for example, he will lose his job or whatever. On this, like, I mean, I'm trying to twist my mind around it. Why would you think this? Because I want the same approach as you did. Like, the scene will still evolve.
Yeah.
The scene will still have the competition. OGN is there. But why would he go for that?
So
this is the most important thing for me. Like, why would he go for that?
So think about it now, right? Like, currently where Overwatch is at, Overwatch is still a very small game, right? It doesn't have a ton, especially for esport tournaments, there's not a ton of viewers and stuff. And right now, for example, I just pulled it up live. So currently on Twitch, there are 35,000 people watching Overwatch streams compared to 140,000 people watching League of Legends streams, right? It's a much smaller number. We're down by over 100,000 people, and there is some 3v3 tournament going on right now, even for Overwatch. And I think what he means is that if Overwatch in the West kind of dies out, if Blizzard doesn't, if Overwatch League isn't a success, then we're going to stay where we are, essentially, right? Overwatch League, in theory, is going to be this thing that pushes the scene, like, to the next level, right? Potentially above, other major esports. But without that, we're going to be where we are now, which is a very small scene, realistically. And I think the coach has a vested interest, of course, in the scene becoming bigger, because then, it's just, there's higher stakes, the competition gets better, yes, he'd also probably make more money. I kind of see what he means. Without Overwatch League really succeeding, the scene is not going to necessarily die, I don't think, but it's going to stay where it's at, or it's going to grow very slowly.
Yeah.
Weird. Anyways, yeah. I mean, the OGN Global and the OGN production is probably top level. So are they over investing somehow? Like, they're going all in trying to create all this kind of hype because they predict that the Overwatch will go big, or is this their current mode of operation? Like, they do this for every tournament they ever.
They do this for every tournament. They did this for like Vainglory, which is like, if you guys don't know, Vainglory is like a mobile game that you play on your phone or like play on a tablet. And they set up, and they built their own little stages and stuff for Vainglory tournaments. And they ran, I think, 3 or 4 seasons of the VIPL, the Vainglory International Premier League. And it was in Korea. They flew in teams from all over the world, just like they did for Apex. And they hosted a league. The prize money was pretty small, just like Apex is, but they did it. They hosted it. They had full production value. They made new graphics. They had Monte Cristo and Brendan Vales casting it for the Western audience. OGN just tends to do this. They bring in the big guns and they kind of see where the game goes. And I think in the case of Overwatch, it's less of a risk because they know how high Blizzard's ambitions are. They know that Blizzard really also wants to push it. So if OGN gets kind of their foot in the door early, right, and then Overwatch League does succeed, the next season of Apex afterwards will be even more popular because there'll be more fans of Overwatch.
Okay, let's spin it the other way, because I'm intrigued why Blizzard uses the term Overwatch Contenders and Overwatch League for tournaments that essentially only include North America and European regions.
It's just for the first season, and for the first year, it was my understanding is that they just had problems rolling it out globally, and they couldn't figure out venues to host the events at in China and Korea and stuff yet. So my understanding is that the second season and stuff, they're going to keep rolling it out globally, but for now they're kind of sticking with North America and Europe. But the other thing is you can't have international teams anyways. There's no region locking that we know of.
So in the future, if you think that's gonna be like Overwatch Contenders, all regions, or how does it work?
I think they compete within North America because they're supposed to be cities, right? It's supposed to be whatever, Berlin, London, New York, Los Angeles. The team's supposed to be locked to a city. So I think you will compete within North America, and then I kind of imagine there'll be then a global land, whoever wins the regions, right, go to. I hope.
Yeah, I think it's the way they name it with such an umbrella name that includes all regions. It's not specific to I mean, if you go, because in their statement, and that was got me thinking, is like they said we have seen competition, top level competition in the East, like the Apex and the APAC, and they named this tournament specifically that, okay, these are there, and now we're bringing the same level competition with Overwatch contenders in the West. And I was thinking, why do they go for a name that's so general that could include all the regions, and they only use it for the West? I mean, is this like to get more people attracted, or what's your take on it?
I mean, yeah. I mean, of course, it's to get more people attracted. You know, like obviously they want more people to watch. But again, I as far as I know, it's the first like couple years maybe. It is going to just be in the West because they like literally don't have the resources to expand globally yet. And then later on, they will expand globally. So in a couple years, it will actually be the Overwatch League global. You know, Overwatch contenders will be global. That's their kind of hope for it. I know that they're not doing it now, and I know a lot of people are upset about that, of course, but doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
No, I don't see it like it's not going to happen. I just wonder why when you're going to constantly have like you're not ending the Apex season, you're not ending the APAC Premier or whatever it's called, the APAC Championship in the East, but you're introducing an Overwatch thing that it's called Overwatch. It's not even called like, you know, NA or something, NAAU or something, or like the Western thing. And then this is going to incorporate all the other tournaments or whatever, because maybe that's why the coach is afraid. Like if this, you know, incorporation is affecting the way, you know, the tournaments occur in the league is occurring in Korea right now, in the future, then maybe that's where he has like this kind of, you know, insecurities. Because the thing is, right now you have a league system from the very beginning in Korea, which I don't get how it came to be, but you had a league, not tournaments. I don't know, did you know of any tournaments that went on in Korea, like probably the Overwatch Rumble, the Overwatch Open, or anything like that?
Yeah, nothing on LAN though, but there were some online events, yeah.
Okay, so there were online events, but the first LAN event was like a league, the Apex Season 1. So in Korea, you have straight from the bat a league system, which, in my perspective, is like Blizzard wanted the best in the world, which are the Koreans, to test a league system for their Overwatch thing. That's
OGN does leagues for everything. You know, for Vainglory, again, we'll go back to the Vainglory example. They did the same thing where they had Group A, B, C, and D, and then, you know, the top two teams went off to a playoffs. I don't think that's Blizzard really getting, you know, kind of into OGN's decision making. OGN just runs leagues. That's just kind of what they do.
So you think like Blizzard did not have any kind of interaction with the OGN format? For example, I mean, I can get that they probably didn't care at first about the pre-arranged game modes that OGN introduced, but they obviously used the data they collect, you know, to measure things and such stuff. I mean, I can't see them going so independently of Blizzard right now. I mean, the OGN, do you think that they're going so independently?
I mean, all the Blizzard events, right, have the like predetermined map pools, right, where it's like, this is just what you're going to play, end of discussion. And OGN obviously doesn't have that. They have a very specific format that no one else has used, for better or for worse. I don't think, I can't imagine that Blizzard has a ton of say in OGN's format, because as far as I know, OGN, you know, paid the money to be able to operate a tournament, you know, in Overwatch tournament, whatever it was, to like, if it's anything over $10,000 prize pool, you have to like pay Blizzard, whatever. I'm sure they did, and I'm sure that OGN's doing their own thing. Because OGN has made a lot of decisions that kind of go against what Blizzard has done, like the map format, where Blizzard like really wants to showcase their maps, right? So they're saying, okay, no, you're just going to play on these. No, I don't imagine that. I mean, maybe they do, of course. You know, I have no way of knowing, but I don't think so.
Yeah. Because the interesting thing for me is like in the West, the first three tournaments that they were held, the Overwatch Atlantic Showdown, the Overwatch Open, and what was the other one?
The Atlantic Showdown
MLG?
and
or
I think MLG was the third, or the third like big one, because there was like one like the day after the game came out.
DreamHack was before. DreamHack was before that.
Oh yeah, DreamHack. Yeah.
So anyways, in those tournaments, like Blizzard did not enforce their predetermined map pools. So they had the lenient in the beginning of the Overwatch thing, of the Overwatch esports thing. They had a lenient, approach to these tournaments. And what I don't get really now, because we have all these talks about the Western teams going over to the East to participate in the Apex season, but the Apex season is essentially a tournament in a league format. It's not like a tournament in the Western sense. And
is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing. It's like a different thing. It's like bringing a European basketball team to play in the NBA. The rules are different. The structure is different. You're fighting on different soil. And the thing is that this can work in the East, for example, for the Korean teams, because they are focused around these things. They build the teams. I think that the teams are also interacting with the OGN so as to know the rules, so as to prepare for the changes in the formats. Whereas the Western teams, up to a point, just go there like unprepared in some things. They go there and they're getting into a pit with you don't know what's going to get at you. And I don't see this like a problem if the Western teams know beforehand all these situations. But I see it as a problem when you want like to have top level competition and one of your competitors is facing the tournament format or is getting to know the tournament format like 2 or 3 days before their first game. Like for example, the viewers, we get to know things about how the Overwatch format, the Apex format will play out on the very first day of the tournament, and it's really hard to engage, or it's really hard like to think that this is a fair ground for teams to participate into. I mean, even the recent change in the format where you have like mid-series swaps, player swaps, it favors the Korean teams a lot. I mean, I don't know if Rogue knew about it, but if you get to know these things like 2 weeks before the tournament starts, because that was the time gap between the Apex Season 2 and the Apex Season 3, I mean, it was really nominal, like 2 or 3 weeks.
It was like a month, yeah.
A month, yeah, like a month. But I don't know how soon Rogue knew about it. But anyways, the thing is like, this is a tournament lot for the Korean teams, and it's so different in the way you play it. It's not like you go into the tournament, you play for 3 days, and people have really low times to figure out what you're doing. It's like a totally different format. It's a totally different structure that you're going into. And it's not like a problem for me because I enjoy this structure. It also helps me as a data analyst, like, to understand what went on data-wise in the match, and then go and prepare for the next match. So I can bring out infographics. I can bring out like all this hype with numbers and whatever I want in between the matches because I have the distance, the time to do this. Whereas for example, in Overwatch Rumble, on the next day, it's going to be like in 12 hours. How can I, for example, sit down and calculate all these things and go and say like at this time it's like Cloud9 has a player with 4.2 deaths on average, and this is the best because the next guy has like 5 deaths on average. I can't do it. I mean, I have to sit for 12 hours just to get all this data and go in. So I like the Apex format. But on the other hand, I think this competition is like for teams that engage into this kind of competition from the start. And I don't think that the Western teams, apart from Envious, who have participated in all of the Apex season so far, so essentially it's like a Korean team right now in a sense. They have more experience with this tournament than the Western tournaments at all. So I find it kind of hard to evaluate the competition level. I find it kind of hard to engage into this discussion who is the best or who is the worst or everything like that, because it's like, again, putting a European basketball team to play in an NBA structure, which is vastly different.
Elbion, let me phrase it in like a thought experiment, right? If the group of Rogue was played on one weekend, so no preparation time, nothing. So
yeah,
for instance, OOM is finished, maybe they come over, or they meet on neutral ground, so everyone's just as jet-lagged, whatever. Like the environment is just as foreign. So all the factors are the same. Who gets out of that group?
Who gets out of that group? I mean, probably what I would have to go with what my original prediction was, which was Lunatic High Rogue. I don't think that Kangdu Panthera makes it out because we can see the difference between Kangdu Panthera playing, in week 1 against Lunatic High and then playing later on in the tournament. They've definitely improved. Do I think that if all of Apex, for example, was played in 1 week, that Rogue suddenly wins? No, not at all. Rogue still had pretty glaring weaknesses, and their lack of depth is the big thing. Do I think that they get out of the group? Yeah, possibly. But the other problem is Rogue also lost a lot of their matches for really dumb reasons. The best one was against Mighty AOD, where they lost a map, or they lose team fights off just the silliest stuff. And you're like, why are players doing stuff like this? And who was it against? I think it was against Kangdu Panthera. I just remember it was Route 66, and it was in overtime, and it was both teams had finished the map and they had enough time, and Rogue was trying to defend around the corner, right in front of Big Earls. And soon, of course, he's playing Tracer with nobody in front of him, nothing, just walks out from around the corner and just gets instantly killed. And it was well, what'd you do that for, buddy? Yeah, and it's not that he blinked out and he was trying to cross to cover, right? He literally just walks out and gets killed. And it was now your team's in a 5v6 and you lost. And I don't think that Rogue, and I think actually if you play the entire tournament in a weekend, you would have seen more of those errors from Rogue. And, having extended amounts of time to practice against Korean teams is hugely advantageous, Envious, is definitely one of the teams that has benefited from that, Going to Apex Season 1 and getting to practice against Korean teams, I think it's pretty hard to make the argument that they didn't, learn something from it. They came back to MLG Vegas, and obviously that was pretty one-sided. The league, if you are in one of these league formats and you're in Apex for 2-3 months, right? You're in Korea for 2-3 months, scrimming against, you don't have to say some of the the best teams in the world, but definitely very good competition. You're scrimming against partners who are taking the scrims more seriously than players in North America are, and that is that's just a fact, unfortunately. There's multiple people who have come out and said that North American players don't necessarily take scrims seriously, and on the flip side, there's a lot of sources that say that the Koreans take scrims and even just ladder very seriously. So I think it's very hard to make that argument that you go over to Korea and you're there for months and that your practice isn't somehow better. If you go to Korea and you have, again, 2-3 months and you have time to figure out your enemy teams, and you can't figure them out, that might be your fault. Rogue had the unfortunate circumstance this season of playing months and months and months of online tournament, right, where they played the same damn thing over and over and over and over again. And the Korean teams did have tons of footage to look through. That's true. But, I mean, Rogue could have learned to play something else.
Did you see these mistakes that you mentioned, Soon doing in the West? I thought... Yeah,
so I've always been one of the people who I don't believe that Soon is as high up as most people put him. Even if we want to go back to, what was it? Was it DreamHack? I think it was DreamHack. And that was the one where I remember ZP was casting at that event. And I remember him using the phrase that Soon is becoming this transcendent tracer. I remember specifically those 2 words, transcendent tracer. And then I remember watching the next match and seeing him get hooked by Buds on Roadhog every 30 seconds and just dying. And, Soon coming in and throwing pulse bombs on, Reinhardt shields and stuff like that. And it's not that Soon is the only tracer playing doing this. Of course, every tracer player makes mistakes. But, I think that at a certain point, people get biased based off of some results that they see, and maybe not all of them. Is Soon explosive? Yeah, he has moments where he just blows teams out of the water, he does. But on the flip side, a lot of Tracer players do. Effect did that with Envious this season. There's a ton of Tracer players who are just going crazy.
Carachol, come on, give me the numbers. Is that supported by the numbers?
About Son, you mean?
Yes.
Well, you can't really evaluate him in the West.
Sure.
Because they were the winning team. I mean, the competition was one-sided in most cases, so obviously. And the thing is, it wasn't only about LAN or online. I mean, even if Rogue were to play all the American teams or the European teams on LAN, they could probably have the same results. I don't think it was about, you know, playing online or offline at this moment, at that moment. I think that essentially in the West, the competition is lower, is 1 or 2 levels lower, in the sense that they don't really think the game too much. And I agree with Elbion, and I pointed out at him when we had that heated discussion about, you know, the hype, the rock hype, where he was like talking about the SETI American teams and all this stuff. I won't use the word SETI because I don't think that they are SETI or anything like that. They're obviously lower in competition, but I can see why this is happening from a cultural perspective, where essentially the Western teams are more about, you know, the appearance, the bravado, all these things, and securing a spot in the competitions, rather than like going all deep into strategies, into understanding the game and stuff. I mean, most of the teams in the West had no coach until recently, like 1 or 2 months before, or, you know, their structure wasn't there. Even some of them don't, as of now, don't even have like coaches who seriously take their job as to, you know, to bring the team together. Envious, remind you, was a team that attained a coach in Apex Season 2. And I had a discussion with them, an interview with them, and, you know, at that time there were problems within the team that couldn't be solved, and probably the departure of Hulk may solve them, because it essentially made, you know, Kai stronger in a sense, because he was left behind to work with the team, and he could, you know, put forward his own idea for the team and how everyone would get to play together. So I think that this is a problem of the West, that they don't have this kind of structure where you think about the game, not about who you play against. Most teams in the West, and that's what's a problem with Envious, with Cloud9 as well, they try to play their opponents. If we can win over the 5 teams that we play against in these tournaments, then we're happy with it. Whereas in Korea, I think it's not about, you know, beating Lunatic High or beating Kontu Batheron. I mean, it's about being the best, being at the top, having great depth in your play and whatever. That's why they replace their weaknesses, and they don't just replace players within the structure that they don't seem like having personality issues or something like this kind of small reasons for me in competitive play. I mean, if you have a player with great potential and you get him into a structure like Lunatic Highs, where they have the coach assuming control over the whole team, you don't have like someone in the team, a player having the control of the team, then obviously that player with time, he will fit into this practice of the team. And that's probably the biggest difference between the West and the East I see right now, because Envious pointed this out to me, and I still need to see if they are going to prove it in this season, that the Korean teams aren't that far ahead. Like, we may think that the top 3 teams in the world are, for example, Lunatic High, Luxury Watch Blue, and some other Korean team that fluctuate. Last season for some it was a Runaway, this season maybe Kontu Bathera or whatever. But I don't think that, you know, the difference is that far. And also I don't think that the Apex season is a great tournament to test this kind of difference. It really favors the Korean teams. It's not even, I mean, it's not like having 8 teams, 8 Western teams, 8 Korean teams. It's like right now it's like having 14 Korean teams against 2 Western teams. So, and the upsets can be really bad for the Western teams, because the intervals between the games allow the structure of Koreans have, with the coaches analyzing the game, analysts, and all this such. I can tell you for a fact that one of the, I think the biggest region in the world that reads Winthos Lab is Korea, and second is like North America, and third and fourth and far beyond is like the European thing. And I think North America is only a matter of population. Like, they have all these teams and all these, you know, people that try to care about stats and such stuff. And this means that when you have so many teams, for example, in North America participating, and you don't have on par, or you are not ahead of the Korean teams in reading stats or whatever, you're not taking this game seriously enough. But again, I don't think that the Apex season is the best criteria to show us what's the difference right now. between the teams?
Okay, so I have a bunch of stuff to say. First of all, on the cultural differences thing, it's just impossible to draw differences between putting a player in a Korean team and a Western team, because in Korea they have it built into their culture that you respect, any people older than you, right? And if you have a coach, you respect the coach, you listen to that coach. Kind of end of discussion. So for example, if you were to take a player from North America who was fully fluent in Korean, for example, right, and put them into Lunatic High, like you mentioned, they would not necessarily eventually fit in. They might fit in because they have that personality, but it's not nearly any kind of guarantee. The cultures are just so different, where here in North America, we don't believe me, I've grown up here my whole life and I've worked with a ton of esports pros. They don't necessarily respect who they're kind of supposed to. The reason why so many coaches in North America right now either played Overwatch professionally, earlier, or were pros in other games or something, is because oftentimes that's the only way you can get respect out of a player, to actually listen to the coach, is they have to have some sort of pedigree within the game itself. And that doesn't always make sense. It makes a lot of sense to have, maybe a basketball coach come in, right? Somebody who's used to dealing with kind of young men who maybe don't listen all the time, and honestly kind of breaking them, telling them, sitting them down and saying, no, you're going to play into the team system or you're off the team. And a lot of the times here in North America, the coach does not have that authority. Very, very rarely do they have that authority.
Even in the school environment, like you have a coach.
No. So because I grew up, I have here a bunch of my like varsity letters from doing sports. The coach a lot of time can't make like decisions on. They can make decisions on like who's the starting roster, but you can't even like cut people and say you're off the team, don't come back to practice. In some instances. But like within esports, a lot of the time the coach doesn't have that authority. It goes to the team manager, the team owner, whoever. The coach is assumed to just come in and just try and manage people. But he's trying to manage people with no leverage, right? Like the worst he can do is kind of wag his finger at you. But you go over to Korea, and the coach has the authority most of the time to do stuff like that. They have the authority to say, no, you're not listening, you're not playing into the team environment. We're either dropping you from the roster or you're not starting this week, right? We're bringing the sub in. And when you have that kind of leverage over the player actually has the incentive to learn. But even beyond that, saying that like teams in North America don't have coaches, I don't know how much that matters. Because like think about Runaway last season. They went all the way to the grand finals and they did like super well throughout the season, right? Or more so in the playoffs.
They had a coach.
Yeah, but it was Runner doing a lot of the work, because you got to remember so many of their players are still in school. They're not able to commit as much time as North American pros are, who have dropped out of college, or, Immortals I know as people in school. But there's so many people who have all day and they stream instead because they want to make money. They don't sit there and watch VODs by themselves and talk with their team, right? They stream. We get players who, came out, and it was an interview with Inven Global, where he said in the week where they played Kangdu Uncia and Lunatic High in the quarterfinal, that like weird bracket thing, he slept like 10 hours that week or something. All he did was watch VODs, and all he did was help prepare his team. And there is a lot of merit to preparing for specific opponents. You said it earlier, where it's better to like think just about the game in general, and I agree with you. That's a lot of what my work is kind of abstract thinking about how the game works. But preparing for specific opponents is a huge deal, whether or not you're in a tournament or a league. In a league, you just get the benefit of having more time to do so. So if Western teams come over to Apex and they still can't prepare, proper strategies for whoever opponent they're playing against, they're not going to be able to do it in a tournament.
How can you prepare them when you don't have votes? When you don't, Screams are probably the most overrated thing in Overwatch right now, and essentially in Apex. I have heard so many people saying that they did well in Screams, and then they went on the main stage and they got decimated, because in Screams
that's not just Overwatch. That's just in general.
Yeah, but the thing is, in Screams, you don't know if your opponents are testing a certain strategy that they're going to reject on the main stage, or if you have to go full speed on them. I mean, Screams aren't like, we're going to play at a full potential and they're going to play at full potential, and at the end we're going to evaluate how well we will do against another opponent. And the issue I see with Korean teams as well is like, you don't have any other kind of info on them unless from other players that have screened them, or from previous matches within the same tournament you're playing. What were the votes that Rogue or me, for example, or someone else could watch for Korean teams while Apex wasn't playing? None.
The previous season of Apex, which was like a month before.
Yeah, but the thing is, in the previous season, in the semifinals, you had a patch change, and the thing is that before that patch change, everyone's playing Reinhardt. After that patch change, everyone's going to play Winston because Winston got fixed, and essentially that was a buff to him. Because since he was fixed, he could stay alive much longer, and essentially he was creating a new kind of meta by himself.
Not just that, right? Like a ton of teams actually switched players, and if you guys remember, like doing this prediction stuff for Radon's article, it was ridiculously hard to just predict based on meta, how the 7th player rule would come into play, right? You're basically playing pretty much a new game. Also based on the fact that everyone seems to be playing their own style at the moment. I don't think you could have predicted this necessarily before this thing started, could you?
Predicted what?
That how the meta was going to go out. So, for instance, if I prepare
before the season of Apex.
Yeah, if I prepare for Lunatic High, right? The last VODs I had before this season was the finals, right? But they didn't have Guido, right? I would argue
they're not going to play Guido in any match that matters. They played Guido against Mighty AOD. They didn't play him against Rogue. They're not going to play him in the playoffs.
They're playing DPS, and they didn't play it back then.
Yeah, but they play with Zunba because then they still have the potential to throw him back on D.Va.
Sure, but you didn't know that for 100%, right? That was still like a...
That they wouldn't play their sub in a match that mattered? I could have guessed that they would play Zunba in a match that mattered. Why would you not play Zumba in a match that matters? Zumba is like one of the best flex tank players in the world.
Well, why would you, for instance, play Effect now and kick Internet Hulk? Like, why would you play Eska still?
Because Effect is like a lot better than Internet Hulk.
Well, basically, Effect is the tracer that was missing from...
Yeah, because Envious has never, ever had like some god tier tracer, and now they do.
That's
like
but you're doing hindsight analysis here because we didn't know how good Guido was, and we also didn't know how good Effect was.
We don't have to. That's not the thing. We don't have to. We know Lunatic High obviously did because they can practice with him, right? So they know going in, okay, we're gonna play Guido, right?
Yes.
And if you are, who do they play with Guido? Mighty AOD. Mighty AOD assumedly knows Guido exists. I mean, it's not that hard to know that a player exists. And assumedly they know what he plays. They kind of have an idea that they're going to be playing a lot of triple DPS with Guido, right? Assumedly, because that's what he plays. You're still playing with Eska and who are you? And if you're going in,
but the thing is, do you know that you're going to play? Let me have you answer this as well, because do you think that they would going to play with triple DPS at some point, or they would prepare triple DPS strategy based on what you've seen, what you had seen in the past?
Would Mighty AOD prepare that, or Lunatic High?
Lunatic High.
Would they prepare to play against or play themselves?
Play themselves.
Why would they not prepare to play it themselves? I think every Korean team, has at some point played triple DPS this season. That might not be correct, but a lot of the teams at least have at some point picked it up. Because I think it's pretty hard to look at what Rogue did, of course, in North America and go, no, there's absolutely no merit to that, right? They just went on this massive win streak for no reason, So obviously you're going to look at that strategy and go, okay, what's so good about it? So they're going to play it themselves a little bit in scrims, right? Maybe they're not going to, fully invest into it, of course, but you're going to try it out. Why would you not?
Sure.
I don't know, because basically 222 in Korea has already proved that.
Yeah, but look at how much there's triple DPS early in the season of Apex, right? And even earlier on in the season, Lunatic High was playing a ton of Soldier for Zunba, right? And now he's like, well, I'm just gonna do it again, partially because people learned that if we're up against triple DPS, D.Va's pretty darn good. So you played a 3x2 again.
To me, I have to honestly say it wasn't absolutely apparent that Guido would play only in the triple DPS matters, because I know you value Eska higher. I think
me.
You famously said he had a dazzling performance, and that dazzled me like that was actually for me Eska's
I think that was the Eichenwald, right, where I wrote that on Eichenwald, where he chased Stitch to the other side of the castle and was like going back and forth, like harassing Stitch and still fighting on the front line. I was pretty impressed.
I don't think it was about the final. I think it was about the
or the against Meta Athena in the semis, where he goes in, drops the pulse bomb on the Lucio, kills him, goes up, kills the McCree who's channeling Deadeye. I was still impressed by that. I'm not saying that I don't think I've ever said that Yiska is like the best DPS player in the world. I don't think I've ever gotten anything close to that.
So wouldn't it then be less than obvious that they would only play Guido in the triple DPS meta and not slot him in for Yiska, who was honestly before this performance?
That's true, but you're also just because we, the fans, we, the audience, don't know something's happening, doesn't mean that before the match they're told, hey, this is the roster you're playing against, right? Because at a certain point, the teams have to say, hey, this is the 6 people we're going to start the match with, right?
Yeah.
You have to tell OGN that, and the other team at a certain point is going to be told that as well.
Yes.
And if you hear, okay, they have Guido, Yiska, who are you? You go, they have 3 DPS players on their roster. You can take an educated guess. At the very least, you can go, okay, they might be playing triple DPS, or they still might be playing 3x2, and one of the DPS players will be playing Diva, and it's then still playing standard, except you're not playing against Zumba, which is a good thing. Not playing against Zumba's Diva is a good thing.
Sure. But I guess my point would be that it would still be, like, you're already sort of stretched in the practice you can do, and then
of course.
to like, there's practically, I would say, nothing you can do at the point you're getting told that Guido...
That's the point.
Right?
That's why you have subs. You don't have subs to just have them sit around on the bench. You have subs to play those mind games. And that's why, like, Envious picking up Louis and then just, like, literally not playing him, and, like, Louis, like, whatever he's doing now, I'm surprised by that. And it almost just makes me think that Louis was, like, a temporary stand-in until he could get effect, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
so this feeds back into
basically, like...
So this feeds back into the point of the unpredictability, because you didn't have the data before the season started, right?
Before this, well, yeah, of course not. I mean, you know.
I mean, did you know about the rule, the mid-series swap rule before?
They announced it before the season, yeah. And the other thing is, it's not.
How many days?
I actually don't know that off the top of my head. Honestly, it wasn't much before the season. But the other thing is, we were told, right, that just a few days before the season or whatever.
Yes.
I'm sure the teams were told before we were.
Obviously, I think they were told from the moment that
they were invited, probably.
That Envious got Louis on the roster when they had also Internet Hulk on the roster. I mean, the chain of events was like Louis gets on the roster so as to play the GN's player. Internet Hulk is still on the roster. Then we learn that Internet Hulk has left the roster, and then we go on and I think
so.
Basically,
the other thing is
on the same day that the tournament, we learned about all these things going on inside.
Yeah. So the other thing is, a lot of the time, a team roster announcement, when it gets announced and we learn about it, it's happened before that.
Yeah.
It's very rare that that's the day. It was actually funny because I actually interviewed Louis, and that is actually one instance where it did literally happen that day. Like Internet Hulk dropped and they brought Louis on, and then like that day he played in whatever it was, like Rivalcade or something with them. Like literally that day.
Zombie.
Yeah, so that was a rare instance, but most of the time it's happened well before, and to us it might be a surprise, but it's not a surprise behind the scenes.
Best kept secrets.
Yeah, best kept. You know, Kaiser going to Cloud9 was a shock, right? You know, so I don't know how much I buy that argument, because a lot of the time the teams know. Just because we don't doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Yeah, but the thing is that a Korean team, since they're playing in their region, since they're playing in, you know, essentially it's their league, and I pointed out this many times, they prepare for these kind of things faster and easier. It's not like, I mean,
that's not. Well, but the thing is, the thing that I don't like is that you're somehow like holding that against the Korean teams. Why not?
No,
like, when I turn around and be like, the Western teams aren't preparing properly.
No, I'm not holding against that. I just state that this is the kind of factor that you have to take into account when you want to really see the strength of a region. I mean, they're playing in their own league. I accept that they're playing in you know, in a tournament with 4 teams against to invite teams or whatever.
Okay.
I still don't buy personally. I think that they have mostly the best players, the best not the best players, the best talent pool right now in the world. They can get players picked from their talent pool, from their ranked ladder, that if you take the top 500 for Korea and the top 500 from, you know, NA and the top 500 from EU, get rid of all the Smurfs, just the 500, the unique 500 players.
Yeah.
Basically, the ladder you will get at the end, it would be like 400 Korean players, 50, you know, European players, and the rest 50 maybe European or whatever. Like, it would be that much of a difference. So I agree that the Korea right now has the best talent pool available, after hearing also from MVS telling me that. So I accept this thing, and I accept that this is their league. I don't think that Roy going there and being pit against some of the best Korean teams and losing both of the games in this current tournament that they were playing is essentially making them like it was a bad game for the West, because the West is far behind. I mean,
okay, I agree. I think losing to Lunatic High, it's like, oh no, we lost to Lunatic High, right? Like that happens. They're pretty darn good, you know.
Do you think though that Rogue played that well in that?
I think this tournament was like pretty classic Throg. Like they threw a lot of team fights. They threw some maps, you know.
I agree.
They made a lot of mistakes, and that's the problem, right? I don't believe that. I legitimately do believe after this group that Lunatic High, obviously, I don't think anyone's going to contest me that Lunatic High is better than Rogue. I think that one people are okay with, right? Kongdu Panthera is another one that people are more likely to kind of fight over if Panthera is better than Rogue or not. But I don't think you can like look at how Rogue did and like see kind of some of the mistakes and just be like, it's okay. They're in another country, right? Because even in their series against Lunatic High, they had been there for what? It was like about a month at that point, because it was the 26th. Yeah, so they'd been there for about a month. You know, you can't make the jet lag argument anymore, right? You've been there for a month. In terms of the practice, you've got to practice against Korean teams for a month. Obviously, you're not practicing against Lunatic High because, you know, they're in your group. They're never going to practice you. But in this instance, you can still be practicing against, you know, Africa Blue, who's actually looked really good. You can play against, you know, LW
but you
Blue.
have the motivation. That's the thing.
If you don't have the motivation, that's not my problem. If Rogue goes to Korea and doesn't have the motivation to practice as much as they can, then they deserve to, you know, lose.
Not really to practice as much as you can, but essentially to try and win the whole of Apex. Basically,
why would they not?
Why would they not? Because
why would you go to a league, you know, in a foreign country, right? Why would these players move from Europe to Las Vegas if they weren't interested in winning?
A lot of things happened from the moment that they moved to Korea till now, in the whole scene. For example, the announcement of the Overwatch World Cup and the process. That essentially, I think they will represent.
Why does that make them
France.
not want to win Apex?
Because the problem I see with Korea right now is that they probably understood that they were playing at a disadvantage. They couldn't make the triple DPS composition work as they would like to. I think that Nico was probably like, he was forced by the Korean team to stay on D.Va, and therefore they lost one of the elements of their triple DPS composition, and this threw them off a lot. I mean, they hadn't prepared anything else because it's Rogue and it's a team that had no.
So that's
no
a weakness,
roads.
right?
Yeah, it's a weakness. But
you have so many one tricks on that team, like that
not
over
one
half that team.
Not one tricks, but
Soon is a one trick. Nox is a one trick.
Soon isn't a one trick. He plays one hero, but he is probably top 3 McCree in the West.
Okay, but he's not playing it, right? Yeah, and I'm not saying they're one tricks that they literally only play that. I'm sure on ladder and whatever they play a bunch of stuff, you know. But the problem is when you come in and I can always go, okay, this is a professional match. I am whatever team. I can go, is Soon going to play Tracer? Yes. Is he only going to play Tracer? Probably, yeah. I don't really have to, you know, bet on anything else coming from Soon. I don't really have to bet on playing against Reinhardt. I can pretty much assume I'm always going to be playing against Winston.
So
right?
wouldn't you have to apply that same filter to who are you then?
Yeah, no, of course. And you're playing against, Luna Takai. You go, okay, I'm gonna be playing against who are you? And he's probably only gonna play Genji. I'm gonna be playing against Miro. He's probably only gonna play Winston, right? And they're only gonna switch when they're like drastically forced to.
Yeah, but why would they play anything else? I mean, right now Tracer is in a good spot. Winston is in a good spot.
I agree with that. That's why Soon and Nox are essentially one tricks. But Genji, on the other hand, is not some crazy crucial piece to every team composition right now.
You
just
think?
isn't. No, I don't think so. The game has shifted away from being like super heavy team fights. Like it's season 1 of Apex, right? Where it was like 6. It was literally like season 1 was like death ball, right? It's like get a bunch of ultimates, slamming into each other. Whoever has more ults is pretty likely to win. And then now, because of the fact that we're playing so much Tracer, and I wrote a whole article on this, and the fact that Zarya just like has disappeared, right? You're not looking for these like huge wombo combos, right? Because you don't have Graviton Surge, you don't have Earth Shatter, so you're not looking for the Big Bang that everyone did, right? In season 1, remember? BK Stars was famous for this with Bernard and Bunny. Graviton, Pulse Bomb, and now Pulse Bomb is being used almost exclusively to pick off support players, or to throw it on the Winston, and then the Tracer throws like a handful of shots into him, and then the Winston dies. But it's being used for picks now, and the game's shifted away from these super heavy team fights, and that's one of Genji's strengths, right? Get Dragon Blade, get a bunch of free resets, dominate people, and that's where we get all these sick Genji highlights, right? Where he's getting reset after reset after reset, and just like killing everybody. But Tracer, we get all these highlights where Tracer's just staying alive, doing a bunch of damage. So I don't think that Genji is as critical to every team composition. You can still play Protect the Genji if you want, but it's by no means required anymore.
It's not about protecting the Genji. I have a totally different image in my mind right now about the Overwatch scene, and it's mostly about the Genji has so much utility as a hero. He has probably the biggest utility right now because he doesn't lose
Ana still exists.
Efficiency. He doesn't lose efficiency while he's using his ultimate. He can deflect things and he can dash. And the dash skill right now, when you're doing poking damage and you need someone to finish that kill, he's essentially the one hero that can finish that kill. Soldier 76, one of the strong cards of Rogue, can't finish kills. I mean, he can get.
No, that's not his job. Yeah.
He can get a lucky, or not even a lucky. He can get a good Helix rocket. I mean, AKM can do that, but he has to get in a position to do this, and the other team knows this, and they will position to not get picked. And
throw D.Va at him.
Throw D.Va at him. I mean, you have barriers. You have the wisdom barrier, and the thing is, if your team doesn't have a wisdom, something somehow to dismantle the wisdom barrier really fast, then that wisdom barrier becomes a problem. So a soldier can't really finish off kills. Tracer, at the same time, he can't, because they have the D.Va, can't really finish off kills. And then you require your team to play Zenyatta, so as you have that extra DPS potential with the Discord orb. But at the same time, it's probably you're losing efficiency, the efficiency that Ana brings to the game. You don't have the counter to the enemy Zenyatta if he's running if they're running a Zenyatta, or if they're running an Ana, then you have the problem that they have the nade to stop you cold while you're going for your ultimate, and that ultimate charge lower than the Ana ultimate charge. So, and at the same time, the London coach pointed out, I agree with him. I saw this from Nico. Many times Nico, when he Dragon Blade in the West, he essentially forced teams to respond to his Dragon Blade. It's not so easily to sleep in ulti Genji. I mean, we have seen
unless you're Ryuji Hong.
Yeah. and I want to ask you this one, because I think that Ryuji Hong, because he's practicing with Who Are You, with the best Genji in the world, essentially he's like, the guy who gets trained with the best, like in karate, with the 100 test, the 100-man test. So he's like that guy that you can't really touch upon. I don't think even Anko at this point, he can touch this guy in sleeping, this kind of...
No. In Zenyatta play, Anko's definitely better, but Ana play, I mean, come on, like Ryuji Hong is like the Ana. Yeah.
So the tough question, who is a better Mercy?
Who's a better Mercy? I don't give a single fuck. So to touch on your point though, Genji's just not even. I don't think that Genji's even that crucial to this meta. And I'll go to Winston's lab for this. And it was after the Lucio patch. It was Genji was 45%, and now he's down to 37. So like roughly a third, right? And Tracer's up to 2/3 now.
But
and
this
Tracer's
is
over 2/3.
this is not the Apex percent.
What is it in Apex then? It's Genji's still not out. Genji is still not being played more than Tracer is my point.
I agree, but I think that's a problem with the teams that they probably don't.
Well, that's not a
have
problem
that
because they're
Genji
doing
players.
fine without Genji, and there's tons and tons of good Genji players. Even Arhan isn't playing as much Genji right now. He's playing Tracer, and it's because when you Dragon Blade, the enemy team has to react. They have to drop a sound barrier, or they have to sleep dart you, or there's a bunch of things they have to do. Right? They have options. But when in these days without Zarya, if you get pulse bombed, you have no options. You're dead.
What do you mean?
Like if you get stuck with a pulse bomb by a Tracer, you are dead. It doesn't matter.
As a Genji?
Yeah,
or
Genji's
as a player.
dead.
Or
And just any hero in the meta right now, because Zarya's not there to bubble you, right? Unless you're like Zenyatta and you can ult, and like nobody plays Mei or anything. But pulse bombs these days, there is no reaction, right? Dragon Blade, you have options.
Diva Matrix.
Yeah, okay. If the Tracer player throws pulse bomb into defense matrix, that's the Tracer player's problem. Yeah. That's the Tracer player.
Yeah,
but I'm saying,
okay. Let me tell you this. When I was watching the VOD from Rogue's play in the West, Soon had this kind of MO that I found really interesting, but at the same time I found really easily to be avoided. So when they were forced to push after respawn through a choke, like for example in Gibraltar or wherever, there was a choke and the whole team was pushing together. Then teams that didn't have Diva and even teams that had Diva, they were off their guard, and essentially Soon was getting like 1 or 2 kills out of an early pulse bomb so early in the fight that it was a lost fight for the defense, essentially.
And that's what Tracer players are doing. That's my whole point. Yeah.
Do you see him do this once in the whole Apex run of Rogue right now? I saw him none.
He's getting some pulse bomb kills, of course, but it's not the same. And of course, it's not the same. The Korean teams are better. They avoid it.
Yeah, they're better. They're prepared for him, but that's exactly the point I want to make. Like, even if you don't have Zarya to bubble after he got the pulse bomb on you, essentially Diva is such a big threat to a lot of Tracers, because the Tracer needs to go to a flank or needs to find a really defenseless pick to go and drop his.
That's not that hard for Tracer, to be fair. We're seeing a lot of Tracers get pulse bomb picks, though. It's really, and because
after Tracer, they kill the Winston or the Diva, yeah, but before that, no.
Even before that, yeah, we're seeing a lot of fights getting started with a pulse bomb pick.
No. Not as many, to be honest.
Well, yeah, not as many as when Rogue was playing like Who Gives a Shit online in NA. Yeah, of course not. But but the best Tracer players will find those picks. The best Tracer players don't even use pulse bombs. Like, for fuck's sake, that one highlight clip out of FX's first match on what was it?
The Hollywood.
Yeah, the Hollywood clip.
No,
there was like
pick this one up. They weren't focusing. I mean, they probably Metathena at the point was so tilted. They just ignored him. Like,
no, and this is a problem that everybody is ignoring Tracers. It's a problem. You just play McCree. The way that every Tracer's playing, it's like they're playing within your own team. Just play McCree. And at least if you're not even gonna kill her necessarily, right? But if you force recall out, the Tracer can't be as aggressive. And it's just like, if Tracer can't be as aggressive, then what's the point of playing Tracer?
McCree's a bad pick, to be honest. McCree's like a sitting duck most of the time, waiting to die. The dive. You can't protect McCree right now. If you're not playing with like a Reinhardt or a Zarya on your own, and again these picks suffer from the fact that their ultimates charge so slow.
McCree's ultimate is shit anyways, it doesn't matter. McCree's ultimate is shit regardless, it doesn't matter.
No, I mean,
McCree for his ultimate.
If you get to play McCree, then you have to play with Zarya and Reinhardt, and then Reinhardt and Zarya ultimates also charge slow. At the same time, with the Reinhardt ultimate, you can't get more than 2 or 3 people, and that's like the best you can do right now. While in the past, you get 4 or 5 people in one at starter.
Yeah, because they were confused. No, like, you don't have to play. Somebody was, I can't remember who it was now. Somebody was playing McCree though. Was it Taimu? Was he playing? I can't remember.
Well, Taimu is playing him in Nepal, for example, on the Shrine. It depends on the map.
Yeah, no, but there was
constantly.
Somebody was playing McCree on like Gibraltar or something, and when the Winston jumps in, because how the Winstons do, they jump up and they drop the bubble like midair, right? Like they land before the bubble does, right? So they're like,
Yeah.
a lot of the McCrees have been hitting the flashbang before that, and then, you know, whatever, Discord orb or something, and then they're able to seriously chunk the Winston, where the Winston just dies. And then if the Tracer then follows up, it's like, oh, well, then it's just a Tracer, and it's not that scary. Or how we see, like, for example, and my whole thing about the McCree playing within your team was, like, specifically for that clip with effect, where he was, like, literally within the team, right? He was just, like, standing next to the enemy players, and they weren't doing anything. And if you have a McCree there, it's like, he's in flashbang range. And, you're not necessarily going to kill him, because
I think they
people might not follow up on it or whatever.
To be honest.
Let's take it from the horse's mouth, because I remembered a tweet where Taimu actually said, every day I play McCree in ranked, and I feel like a god, and then I play scrims, and remember how fucking bad McCree actually is. Right?
Well, that came up like perfect timing on stream. Holy shit.
That's the magic I work.
Nice. That actually was like perfect timing on stream, though. Okay.
I can't see any way that McCree right now works on any kind of map, unless it's like a sub map of some control, where he's essentially there to just make sure that he actually uses the advantage that the game mode plays in such a way that it's death ball, and your positioning up to a point is irrelevant. Whereas in game modes like Assault, Escort, or Hybrid, where your positioning is much more crucial, McCree is a sitting duck. I mean, the attack, if he's playing defense, the attack can pick him off right off the bat. He can't do anything. His flashbang is so inconsistent, not like in the way the skill is being used, but a Tracer can can bait it out really easily, and no Tracer will go to kill a McCree if he has his flashbang on. I mean, you need to make sure that the Tracer is like in a bad position to use your flashbang on here. And the other thing that I see is like McCree's ult is bad, and because you have to work a lot around your McCree to make him work, essentially you're making yourself vulnerable to the dive. I mean, Reinhardt can't be played right now because teams haven't figured out yet a team composition where you can play with your shield so much that you're negating the dive. Obviously, you can, and this was a problem for me when I was trying to understand, for example, how to counter the triple DPS, and that the solution I came up with was like have a Widowmaker pick off heads, like off the bat. It's one player down, it's 2 players down, because you had like players like Lucio, Soldier, Tracer, and Genji, which are all low health, and you can have your Widow pick of them. And the thing is, after that, if you go the next step, which is like, okay, all teams are going to play Widow in the next meta, or up to a point they will have someone to get this strategy out. Even Lunatic High brought this strategy out in their map against Rogue in Hollywood. And I wasn't expecting Lucio Hong to go for that. I mean, he was like the only player I could never think he could go to get on.
Really?
Yeah, because I thought that Yiska would do. Yiska is a great hit scan player. I mean, he can play McCree well. His Soldier is tracking is okay.
Yeah.
And I couldn't go for like, get your. I mean.
I don't know. Whenever I think about who on Lunatic High I want to play the precise aim hero, I think about Ryu Zhang.
Sure.
Yeah, but who do you think you could put on? I mean, do you think they would? Did you think ever that you could go for that kind of strategy?
Like, well, it was on offense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
One healer. Would you ever imagine it?
I mean, we see Lunatic High is not the only team that has run like solo Lucio, and it was solo Lucio, right?
Yes.
I actually can't remember. Yeah, and they're not the only team that's done that before. Most of the time, teams do it with like super heavy dive, right? They go like Tracer, Genji, Soldier, Diva, Winston, Lucio. That's normally the like single support.
On Hollywood, though?
No, not on Hollywood. But I'm saying we've seen single supports before. And the other thing is, why not? Why not play Widowmaker on the first attack at least? I'm not saying keep trying Widowmaker, because you pop out, if you get that free kill, you get a 5v6 and you can probably win it. If not, you just go back and change. So I think it's fine to play Widowmaker.
Yeah, I think it's fine too, but I wouldn't imagine that they could go for that strategy. I mean, it's not about whether it's fine or not, but about how can you prepare ahead. And this was the discussion that we had.
It's called reacting. Because teams pull out new strategies sometimes. You don't prepare. You have to think. You have to think during the match.
Okay, it is a problem with me because the defense always has this kind of problem where they can't swap on the fly, whereas the attack can't swap on the fly.
That's how the game works. That's why the game's offensively favored. Because you can pull out new strategies.
Yeah, but when you, as an offensive team, you can put like 5 or 6 team compositions for a certain map and the map point, and the defense team can't fight all of them with just one team composition. How does that work? I mean,
that's why you play. That's why on defense, that's why on offense we're much less likely to see like a standard comp, right? Because people are more likely to play something a little weird, especially the first couple attacks, you know. But on defense, we see a lot of like standard comps, right? And that's why we see on defense, like Ana is played a lot more than she is on offense these days, because you go, okay, well, Ana's a little more well-rounded, you know, she can keep herself alive, she's less likely to be picked off by dive, you know, all these other stuff. And you have to kind of play around as much as you can. You can never play around everything, right? You never know when they're going to whip out the Junkrat Bastion, you know? You don't know. But the whole point is, right, on defense, there's a reason why you play standard. There's a reason why people generally play pretty passive. And they give themselves time to see what the enemy's doing, and that's where you hope you have a player who can think real quick and go, okay, shit, if they're playing this, they're probably going to try and do X, Y, and Z, so we can try and do X, Y, and Z to play around it, whether it's send your Tracer player off to harass their Tracer player and try and kind of keep them off the flank or whatever.
How reactionary do you think that is? Like,
is the whole game is reactionary.
No, I mean, reactionary, is that pre-practiced? How many hours do you think Rujeong has played Widowmaker and scrims?
In scrims, I don't know, probably not that many.
So you think that the situation was probably like, you know, a Widow would actually work here, and I can click heads very well, so let's try. Were they full on styling on them?
On Rogue? Wasn't like that. I'd like to say that they were just styling on Rogue, but no, I'm sure he has played it. But am I saying, when I say that probably not that many hours, I mean, he's not like playing it every map, right? And they're like, all right, Yiska, you're going to play Zenyatta now, right? Like, they're not doing that. But I think, have they tried it as a pocket pick before? Has Ryo Jihong played a lot of Widowmaker? Yeah, Ryo Jihong, as if I remember correctly, used to be a McCree Widowmaker player before Ana was released, actually. And when Ana was released, he like loved the kit so much and said, no, guys, I want to play support now so I can play Ana. So he's somebody who can play hit scan. He played, because he used to play, yeah, it was McCree, Widowmaker, Zarya, where it used to be his picks before he moved over to support. So I think in that specific instance, yeah, like Lunatic High definitely thought this was a viable strategy. Was Rogue able to predict it? Obviously not. Like, how would you, right? Sure. But does that mean you can't? That means every time there's a surprise pick, you just kind of roll over and die? I'd hope not. You know, you still have to play around it. You have to think about it. Of course, when Widowmaker pops out and instantly removes someone's head, you can't really play around it. You know, that's the whole point of having a good Widowmaker player.
Sure.
By the way, they prepared that specific strategy for that specific map.
Yeah, why not? I'm sure.
Rogue, to be honest.
So
I'm sure they did. That's where Overwatch is going. The assumption that Overwatch is going to be just standard team composition smashing its head against standard team composition is crazy. You're going to get playbooks, right? Like literal, I'm sure somebody's going to literally make a book where they flip through and they go, this is what we're doing in this match on this map, right? And they're ready for that. Lunatic High did it in the finals against Runaway. The one that like I remember the most because I wrote about it was on Dorado, where they were defending. Ryo Jihong throws the biotic grenade onto the point. Miro and Who Are You instantly jump on, kill the supports, and then from there they started snowballing the defense against Runaway, right? But that was obviously a pretty practiced thing where he, you know, lined up the biotic grenade. They had the timing down to instantly have people collapse. They did it on Temple of Anubis as well, actually. But like you're going to get towards these set plays, right? And obviously the first time a play happens, it's impossible to know it's coming, but you have to try and work around it. And this isn't something that, you know, just the Western teams have to deal with. In theory, the Western teams could also pull out some surprise pick.
Yes.
They could.
Yeah.
But just because they're not doing it.
Huh? I was expecting a lot from Rogue, to be honest. A lot of
I know.
surprise.
I thought that Rogue playing 4 months of one composition meant they were practicing other things. That's what I thought, right?
Foolish
you have to assume. I know. How could I believe a Western team was
They wouldn't play one comp, though. They were playing 2 comps. I don't know why everyone's thinking that they were playing one comp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a hyperbole. It's a hyperbole. I'm intentionally exaggerating.
One style.
Yeah, they're playing, but like you would hope that they're practicing other things, but they also were going, well, we're playing against, you know, shit teams online. We can get away with just doing one thing, right? and you have to give away less. And that's the whole point what Lunatic High did by playing Guido. You play Guido so you don't have to play Zunba, so you can maybe hide something, right? You go, look, we're going to change it up, so this way this best of 5 is essentially worthless, right? You can't derive as much from this best of 5, so their future opponents can't learn as much. There's something for hiding strategies.
So you.
That's why I thought they were starting with a disadvantage, to be honest, in those whole tournament.
There wasn't a concept
Rogue
that
had
I
4
thought
months
about.
to practice other stuff.
There was a concept I thought about, like, very early in the game, if there was ever going to be, like, the indefensible play, right? So, like, if you can hammer, and if you're, like, individually super skillful and ahead of everyone, you assemble the sub roster, and everyone then needs to figure out you. Do you think that can ever work again in Overwatch? Like, so for the rogue approach could actually just sustain the test of time, or is...
You would have to actually have the best players at their roles, and not their heroes, right? At their roles, right? You would have to have the best, like, dive tank player. You'd have to have the best dive DPS players to make that work, to literally play one style, because otherwise somebody's going to come and they're going to have a better X, Y, or Z, right? They're going to have something better than you, and they're going to figure out a way to use that against you. It's just going to happen, right? People are spending so much time thinking about this game, right? That's what we all do, right? We sit around all day. We're all losers. We don't go out and talk to people. We just sit here and, like, think about Overwatch. And when we're doing that on our own, it's, like, pretty unreasonable to assume that pro teams are doing the same, right? They have 6 players who are going to have their own opinions. Hopefully they have a coach, maybe an analyst, somebody, right? And they're going to sit there, and eventually somebody will figure something out, right? Just because it's not obvious at the moment, it'll get figured out. And the only way you're going to be able to play one style forever is if you literally do it flawlessly. And nobody was going to make the argument that Rogue was playing their one style flawlessly. Were they playing it incredibly well? Probably the best at the world at a point? Definitely, right? They were running over people with it, But were they playing it flawlessly? No.
The best in North America, not in the world. You haven't
at the time when they were playing it, nobody was playing triple DPS in Korea at the time because we were on an older patch.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that was probably because they were also playing it during the Apex, and the Apex.
Yeah, because it was on an older patch. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so there's no evidence to assume that Korea would be better at it.
The thing is that they didn't play against also European teams, but they could play on the new pads. I mean,
and the European teams are better anyway, so.
Yeah. Essentially, for example, United also could probably go for that kind of style, and we could see like a showdown on the triple DPS style.
Probably.
Yeah.
The problem I see though is like, you think that if you have the best players in their roles, then you can win with the one style.
Why not? Lunatic High plays Who Are You on Genji literally all day long. Kind of works.
Yeah, because my notion of this thing is like, people and teams haven't really figured out, or probably they don't have a great Genji as Who Are You, so they can't go for the same strategy.
That's the whole point.
Yes.
They can do something that nobody else can.
That's the
problem.
It's
not a problem. It's Lunatic High's advantage that they have earned by having Who Are You. You have to find your own advantage that you have earned by having your own player.
It's like that's a problem in the logic, not the problem in the tournament. The problem with the logic is that when you have another player with
everybody's in the same tournament.
Yeah, everybody hasn't really been picked up, I think, or some talents are still evolving within the scene. So when the game progresses and you have probably the best talent available, and with the test of time and anything else, then we will be able to see if those textbooks plays will work out and how they will work out. Because I think up to a point, and this is my estimation of the North America scene, is you don't have the players with the skill to pull off some tactics, and therefore you're limited in the way you think the game as an analyst, as a coach of that team. That you have to play with the pieces you are dealt with.
And what do you mean by tactics? Do you mean like team compositions, or do you mean like literal
a lot of things? Team compositions, player selections, who is you're going to be your DPS player. I mean, if you're like the old Complexity, their pieces weren't the best in the game. They had to play around some things, and they up to a point became really stagnant after a while, because they reach the skill cap. And if you reach your skill cap, you can't really think beyond that because you don't have the Genji player that can pop off. And that's probably why Envious is so dominant in North America, because their players have such a high skill cap where they can make compositions work even if they don't understand how, you know, the game is being played. They can have one guy that's going to pop off on Roadhog or whatever. And when you have that kind of skill cap and combined with someone who knows the game and the tactics and the composition and things on the same level that we're talking right now, this combined unlocks so many potential and so many things that it's mind-blowing up to a point. And this is why I can't really see why Time hasn't been playing Widowmaker so far.
I agree.
They had like this guy, and they could work with so many tactics and compositions built around his Widowmaker play, and they never went for that. And I'm wondering why they never did that.
Yeah, and that's not a positive, right? Saying that like, oh, we could do all this doesn't matter. All that matters is who did do it, right? And so, you know, and I agree with you. There's a lot of players, you know, within North America, within Europe, even left on the Korean ladder still, who could probably come in and, given the right circumstances, could be absolutely amazing, right? Could destroy teams. But the problem is, if they're not doing it, it kind of doesn't matter.
Well, in the end, yeah.
And I understand where you're going. Is that you're saying we're not where we could be, right? Teams are not as good and not as, you know, perfect. They're not as well practiced as they could be, right? But it doesn't matter if they could be, if they're not doing it. It doesn't matter, because all that matters is eventually what they show up and do in the server, you know?
There I jump in again and say, you know, that's actually also a limitation of the contract structure and money in North America, right? And that's not going to be better. That's
North America is the region least restricted by money.
Yeah, I agree.
Europe is the region most restricted by money.
Sure, but you also have
North America is.
I don't know if you have seen the buyout clauses sometimes, and that is definitely
so. Overwatch as a whole is restricted by money because the game's still small, right? As a whole, we're still pretty restricted. It's much more restricted. Look at Counter-Strike, look at League of Legends, look at Dota. We're restricted comparatively.
Yeah, but why do you think that? Because you're restricted with money, you don't have the best talent available. I don't see any.
Because organizations don't see that it's a worthwhile investment yet. I'm not saying we'll never get there, right? But currently, you have to think about how much money can an organization make, how much can they garner from owning an Overwatch team, and it's really not all that much. Unless you unless you own Seagull and you can put him on his stream, he can, you know, hit go live and get whatever it is, like 20-30,000 viewers, right? And then you can have him run your sponsor ads on his stream. That's worth something. But if you have a bunch of players like, I don't know, literally name another team who stream and get much less viewers, it's just not worth as much to the organization to own these players' contracts. So there's a lot of organizations who aren't fully invested yet. I mean, hell, we have a ton of rosters within the last month drop their teams, right? It just doesn't make as much sense right now to fully commit to an Overwatch team. I hope that one day it does.
I get this logic. I'm going the other way. Like, you have tournaments that are not restricted by, you know, having an organization behind you. You have players, you have the teams, you have all these kind of things. And in every small tournament, if you have ever watched one, you see so many typical compositions. You don't see any kind of, you know, next level play or whatever, or anything like that. It's like imitating what is being played at Apex, in Apex, or, you know, what Envious was playing at the time. So this is the problem I see right now.
That's not just in Overwatch.
True.
I said it earlier. In other games, you know, people just go, oh, what is Korea doing?
Yeah. And
then just do it. And it's regardless of whether or not your own strengths match what that team is doing.
Yeah, but that's generally, I guess it's sort of a, you know, weak points of analysis to sort of consider this a truism, you know? So for instance, we didn't know if that was actually going to be the case, but now it almost culturally seems like, because we have, and I guess we argued this, fairly weak evidence how much weaker the West is than Korea, that this idolizing sort of, I wonder if Western teams don't lower their performance based on that, because they then don't try to you know, innovate and make up the best stuff. Like famously, I think you remember this too, like I think it was Dyrus back in League who said basically our playbook is copying. It's nothing else, right? Yeah. And if you're in that position, you are never going to be logically the best team in the world. Yeah. How could you?
No, you won't, because you're never going to be as good as the team you're copying. So yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Yes,
and
Master.
I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying teams should. I agree. Teams should stop blindly copying, because I agree that there's something to learn from other teams, right? But that's different than blindly copying.
Yes.
And the problem is, a lot of when you're talking about these smaller tournaments, a lot of these amateur teams probably don't have the time to figure out their own strengths super well, right? Or the time to really innovate. So they go, okay, wait, what is the best teams playing, right? And then they assume that those teams have done that work, right? That they've thought, okay, wait, this works because of whatever, right? And then you just copy it.
Yeah.
So a lot of the smaller teams will do it.
I don't see a reason why this is like.
Because they don't have time. Because some people aren't completely dedicated to the game.
It's like a North American thing. Because if we check the EU region, the European region, movie star writers and teams like that seems to get this kind of aspect we're talking right now. It seems to like they try to go beyond it. They try to go, with most innovative compositions, or at least in their region. I mean, you obviously don't know what's being played over in Korea, and you don't have votes also to study or everything else like that, unless you obviously have connections with the coaches and you talk with them and you get all this info somehow from another source. The thing is that in North America specifically, meta is stagnating so fast in this kind of tournaments, that I'm really wondering how you can reach this kind of play we're talking about now. And that's why I think that we haven't seen probably the best of the West yet.
Well, what is their motivation to improve? In North America, there is no motivation to improve currently. There's no tournament that actually matters, right? And you give, in Korea, right, you give these teams, look, here's a very legitimate reason to improve.
That's just subjective. Why can I not care about a Rivalcade just as much as I can care about Apex? If my goal is to be the best?
Because Rivalcade, I'm sitting here at my desk playing, and I'm talking with my friends on, online. To go to Apex, right? If I'm a Western team going to Apex, I pack my bags, I get in a flight, I fly to another country, right?
And I understand that.
Audience.
I understand the human component of all of it, but that still doesn't justify that you can't psychologically put yourself in the
it does, because they're human too.
Sure, but
the players are human too. I understand that we want them to do all these things, right? But they're still humans. They're gonna roll out of bed, play the online tournament, and go back to bed because they're gamers, right?
Okay, so back in the day, I haven't followed at all the CS:GO scene or the CS 1.6, but I believe that when the money wasn't even relatively an issue as they are right now, that there wasn't any kind of tournaments. People still strived in the West to be the top in their games.
Very specific people did.
Yeah,
very specific. Not the
exactly.
whole scene. We have people. Exactly. I understand that, but you have people in Counter-Strike like Get Right who sit there and they play 8 hours a day with their team, and they go, "Great, I'm going to play another 8 hours." But you get people who do that because it takes a very specific kind of person to go, "I'm going to sit here and do one thing all day and just become the best at it." There's a lot of players,
like Koreans.
Yeah, and then on the flip side, the majority of people are gonna sit down and play 8 hours of scrims and go, "Holy shit, I played a ton of Overwatch today," and then log into Pub Battlegrounds and play that instead. Because they're human and they need to relax, right?
Okay, so my question to this is, do you think we've seen these people in the Overwatch scene in the West yet? Or are they
who are so single track minded?
The people who strive to be the best in the world, the best in the game in general, have we seen them in the West?
I don't think we haven't seen them in Korea yet. We've gotten closer in Korea, but I don't think we've had. I'm trying to think if I've heard any stories about. Because specifically, like when I'm thinking about like what like Get Right did and still does, that guy's like insane. Or like what Piglet did back in the day when he was in Korea playing 80 carry. In the West, definitely not. In Korea, I still don't think
I disagree.
Quite hit that limit.
I think there's at times Envious was exactly like that, and IDDQD, the team, was basically based on people
famously Envious wasn't. That's like what
No.
Tailspin's whole.
I'm fine with them saying that wasn't the case in Apex Season 2. And if you listen to what Hulk was saying, also that they lost that quality. They were basically doing nothing else, all like in early beta. It's sad because there's either two components: either they had burned themselves out on the game, or they got complacent got complacent because of the money, right? And the feeling of accomplishment that now the contract is there. But it feels weird that the benchmark is, oh, I got on a team and now I'm getting paid and my parents off my back. Guess I can stop doing what I was doing to get successful. Because if they were going to continue, then that exactly what happens is a Western team goes to Korea. Okay, patch is all fine and dandy, but they win Apex Season 1. So
the downfall of Kaiser. Money.
Okay, but and the thing is because it is wholly unreasonable to expect anybody to sit there and do the same thing day after day after day after day after day for 12 hours, right? For like to really push themselves every single day. Everybody needs time to kind of take a step back, to breathe. Some people that limit is there's some people who have that limit at 16 hours a day, right? Who they just are that kind of weird person. But most people don't have that kind of limit, right? And so when they push themselves to that 16 hours a day or whatever it was, right, in the beta, that's just foolish. You're not pacing yourself properly. If that's what they did, right? You have to think and go, okay, wait, no, I'm trying to get into this for the long run, right? And right now, there isn't a reason for me to push myself so hard. And I'm sure that's what a lot of pros in North America are doing. That's what Seagulls famously said, no, I'm just going to stream right now. I'm not going to play professionally. But once Overwatch League and, whatever comes back around, and there's a reason for him to try super hard again, he says he will. I believe it. I really do believe he'll come out of streaming and come back and play professionally because there's a reason to do so again. Currently in North America, there is not that same legitimate reason. Yes, you can tell a player, hey, look, you're going to go compete for, maybe if you win, you get $100, and because it's going to be split amongst all the team, right? That's not a huge motivation to get up every morning early and start practicing.
We need American fangirls.
We need American fangirls. And the problem is that currently all the North American e-girls are still stuck in League of Legends, so.
Or are streaming.
Or are streaming.
So we need American fanboys as well. So.
You can just pull a cruise and attract the Korean fangirls to you.
Yeah, there you go. You just have to be, You just have to be attractive.
Money for all sick mothers.
I don't buy it for a second that this will improve once the Overwatch League comes around. I don't either. I don't either. I don't think that suddenly North American teams are going to be better. But at least then, when the Overwatch League exists, we can tell North American players, hey, look, here's your reason to give a shit. And if you still don't, then you have a problem. I don't like the issue I see for myself is that this assumes money as the intrinsic motivator, which I'm not saying for money.
I'm saying for the glory of winning. There's not going to be any money. There is no money.
Make Jeff proud.
There is no money in Overwatch right now, realistically compared to other esports.
Sure,
right?
But why?
There just isn't.
Why do you attach more value to Apex than, for instance, a Takeover?
Because you're playing in front of people. Oh, then Takeover. Sorry. Takeover is a LAN. Yeah. Because again, it's just more prestigious. You're going to Korea, which is like Korea in esports is heralded as this like mecca, right? And it's like you have to go there, you have to play. That's the region where so many of the best players in the world come from in like all these different games.
Yes.
And even in Overwatch, Korea is maybe you don't have to agree with me that it's the best region, but it is a very strong region to play in.
No,
right?
I agree.
Apex is a very stacked tournament, right? You go, there's stiff competition. So there's a reason for people to go and they want to say, look, I won, this big event. And I assume that teams going to Takeover will care more as well than playing in, the old like Ghost Gamer weeklies, right? Like you're going to care more because you're going to a venue, you're going to see who you're playing against face to face, right?
So the answer is basically shit talk. So everyone starts caring like ridiculously, and there's like blood feuds.
Shit talk's amazing. Why not?
Exactly.
Why not have feuds? Feuds are great. Feuds motivate people. And with these like random little online events, there is no feuds. Why not have feuds? You see the the like pre-match like trash talk before the Apex Grand Finals. That was awesome, right? And like it got everyone hyped for the match, and I'm sure the players really did believe it. They wanted to win to like prove these points. But when you go to an Alienware monthly melee, it's like, eh.
By the way, do you think they had them like sitting in front of each other, or were they?
Oh, for the trash talk
interviews? Yeah.
My understanding is that I don't know, but from what I've heard, it's they show the players what the other people said about them, and then they get the reactions. So that's how you can get the like they have the responses, you know. So they do know what the other player said, and that's why they can get these reactions. Yeah. No, I don't believe it's like scripted or anything.
Yeah, probably not with
no,
nerds,
I don't think
right?
it's scripted. I don't think it's scripted. I was thinking that they're doing two separate interviews, or they could have them like hearing at the same time that the one guy says, and then you're recording his answer. So it's like
I don't think they have them in the same room. Maybe they do, but I don't. It
would
think
be nice.
Yeah, but they also have them sitting in like the exact same chair, so I don't think they're both there.
Yeah.
No, they could be like sitting in, in recording two different.
Yeah.
On the same stage, but two different areas.
Yeah, that's true.
But I also don't think they are in the same room. But I would like them.
It would be cool. Yeah,
Really cool,
like before like a boxing match, right, where they have the weigh-in and they like get up in each other's face, right? That'd be awesome. I agree. That'd be cool. And again, stuff like that motivates, especially when you do it, before. Well, it motivates. No, you talking about it? It motivates everybody. It makes the fans cheer harder when they know that their players invested, right? It makes the players practice harder for the next event when they get their ass kicked, right? And then they come back to the next event and say, no, this time it's my turn, right? There's so many amazing stories.
The thing is, I think you overestimate how cool it would look. Like just imagining Rascal and Stitch going at each other. Like that would look a little bit.
I don't know. The issue that they filmed where they had the players facing off was pretty cool. Anyways, but I'm saying there's like so many amazing stories that have come out of trash talk in Korea. You know, I don't know many of them well myself, so I won't say them. But like there's a ton of ones that like go watch some of the stuff that like I know there's YouTube videos of it for people watching of like Thorin talking about like some of the storylines in like Korean Brood War. And like these players who like years down the line would come back and like remind a player, you said this to me once, like now it's my turn to like make you eat the words, right? And it's these like amazing stories, and it's motivating for people because they sit there every day and practice and go, no, I'm doing this for a reason. But right now in North American Overwatch, they sit down to practice and go, wait, what am I practicing for again?
You know, though, there has been a lot of trash talk to some players, and what I see in North America is that they don't care to improve after that. It's like they don't want to play the game. some
Then don't be a pro player. If you're not that kind of motivated person, don't be a pro player.
Yeah, that's the problem I see, because the whole structure that you get adopted by a team after you've proven yourself and you adopt the whole roster, and you don't have a coach that gets to pick players or have some kind of say, that's the problem right there. Essentially, it promotes, your ego in a sense that it can't fit into a team afterwards that strives to be the best. It's all about your ego.
And I do want to say, for most of these issues that we're talking about are not on like tier 1 teams, right? They're in tier 2, tier 3 teams that are never going to get the invite to Apex, right? On Envious, on Rogue, we don't really hear as much. We still hear about it sometimes, about like these huge, glaring motivation issues, right? Where players are like, I don't want to practice or whatever, because these players have reasons to do so. It's on these bottom tier teams, these players who, have to commit to other things in life, whether it be school or work because they're not making money, that we have these issues. Once you give the players the reason to start doing it, like in Korea, like most of them do, and some of the top teams, then a lot of these issues start going away. Then you start getting into who doesn't like who, and it becomes, arguing for that reason.
Yeah, but the problem I see is that if your bottom tier or low tier teams don't get motivated, then the competitions you get in your region is lower, and therefore you can't improve.
For online events, which is the whole other thing, online versus LAN. But when you have online events that are just like people can sign up, right? You're going to get a lot of people who go, me and my 5 buddies, we're all diamond, we could play in this, right? And you don't get the best competition in that. Of course you don't. But
I'm not saying this. I mean, even if you get invitational tournaments online, invitational tournaments with the best teams in the region, but if your bottom low tier team, I mean, that's probably why the Korean scene is so ahead in some aspects on the Western scene, is that even if you were to put the 16 teams in Apex in a ladder with the 50 teams in Korea, the 17th and the 18th and the 19th up to 20 or 25 teams, then the numbers from 17 to the 25 could probably be a team in the top 16. Whereas the lower you go in the North America ladder, it's like the skill gap widens. The number 17 team can't make it even to top 8 in Overwatch monthly melee.
Yeah, of course not.
So that's the problem. I see that if your lower competition isn't as great as your top competition, or it doesn't strive to be that great, then you get lower competition, you get worse practice, and therefore you're essentially being weak. And that's why teams want to go to Korea to practice.
And there's because again, there's no motivation. But if you're that 17th team, whatever, right? You're Apex Challenger, and you're playing to fight for a spot in Apex. You have a reason. Even if you're not in Challenger, you're trying to get better, so you can qualify for Challengers. So you then can qualify for Apex. There's motivating factors there.
I still can't abide to this concept of like, okay, so there is motivation to get relevant, and then the motivation to be the best in the world somehow vanishes. It doesn't add up.
I never said it.
No,
I never said that.
No, but you're saying that because they're human, at some point it has to stop for them.
Oh,
right?
no, I'm talking about specific players, how much they practice when I say that. I'm saying you're going to get a person, right, who's willing to sit there for 16 hours a day, right? But not everyone's willing to do that. And that's fine, because again, some people are human, some people need time off. I'm not saying that their motivation lowers. I'm not saying that you are a challenger team, right? And you get into Apex and suddenly you go from practicing 8 hours to 4 hours, right? But I'm saying some people are going to go from 8 hours to 9 hours, right? They're going to get into the league and they're going to be more motivated. There's no reason that your motivation falls unless you just give up, right? If you're the kind of person who says, I just don't want to do this anymore, that's one thing, right? You shouldn't be a pro anyways. But once you get in and there's motivation, your odds of practicing kind of go up. I don't think that they drop at all. When you start seeing success, why would they?
Okay.
How long down the line do you think we'll see these people at being?
Hopefully tomorrow, right? Like, hopefully, like the sooner they come, the better it is for the game, right? Seriously though. The sooner you get better talent into the scene, the better it's going to be. So I hope it's tomorrow. I hope tomorrow morning, I wake up and some new player is on whatever team, right? And they come up and they destroy everybody, and we start learning from them. Right? I hope that happens.
Kai told me that it goes probably till until you see the best people, the best persons, the most qualified ones to be coaches and analysts on teams, then you won't see these things being rooted out from the teams and such stuff. Like, you will keep seeing players and such stuff. Do you consider this as well, a thing that you need that structure in the team first, and then you will see these people rising to fill those ranks up? Or
I think scouting and developing is they're kind of similar. I just think it's a little bit different to be tasked with finding new talent, right? And then to be tasked with taking that talent and making it the best it can be, right? I think
that got me thinking as well. I mean, it's a really
that's an interesting one. I agree that I think it's easier to say that it's important to have a very good coach to get the most out of your players, right? And it's important to have a very good coach who's backed up by very good analysts who are feeding him information, and then the coach then takes it, changes practice regimens, makes them practice new stuff, whatever. Then you can get the most out of the players you currently have. Finding new players and then bringing them in and incorporating them into a system is a different thing, I think. And I think that also requires a good coach, but it requires a different skill set out of that coach. And if you can find a coach who does both, great. That's awesome.
Do you think we have this kind of coaches in the West right now?
The only coach that I have heard like overwhelmingly positive stuff about is Rafflegator on Fnatic, or when he was on Fnatic. I don't remember if he still is. But everything I've always heard about him was that he was really good at setting up these systems, right, for the team to practice in. And that's one of the things that Fnatic was famous for post IDDQD, was not having star players, but just being good as a team. They, got along and stuff because they were able to resolve their issues. In terms of people who can kind of blend that role of, because in my mind as well, being an analyst and a coach is two different things, right? Being someone who sits there and watches VODs all day and learns about the game is different than someone who is supposed to be managing player egos and making sure there's no arguments, right? I think those are two separate responsibilities, and a lot of the time currently in Overwatch, the same person is asked to do both, and that's a lot of responsibility, right?
So, do you think we have so many analysts that can fill those roles?
I think there's a lot of analysts. I don't know how good they are at, you know, working with a team, right? That's a totally different thing. I think it's one, because I've done this in League of Legends. I've been a content creator and then also worked with teams, and it's a totally different skill set. Because it's one thing to write an article, right, and explain it to people on Reddit, right, to have that be your audience, and it's another thing to be able to take an argument and explain it to pro players, not only to explain it to pro players, but to convince pro players that you are correct, and then they want to listen to you. That's a whole other skill set.
Well, basically, you have to convince the coach, mostly. I mean, if you're the analyst and there's a coach, then you convince the coach.
If the coach has power over the players, which I said earlier, which a lot of time they don't. It's the org that has power over the players. The coach is just kind of another person in the team.
So, if we were to make like an infrastructure for the team, the three of us, let's go to the history, numbers, and eye tests. So I am the numbers guy. I would probably get you like what kind of stats you can evaluate the performance of a Gauge player, or like that. Yiska, who would you be?
I would probably stand aside and let you guys do your job, but I think I would just look at what's historically been successful in Overwatch, in esports, and would just get Koreans. Really, that's my go-to.
What?
Yeah.
What a surprise!
Dude, you don't know half of it. I actually probably misrepresented my, persona here, because I too like the Korean flavor, wherever it flavors. And you know, this you will enjoy this, because this is
come out of the closet.
This aged like such a fine wine. Look at this. So I posted this on Reddit, and it got a very negative response, because people don't embrace the scorn like I do, right? The hatred for plebbery, I guess.
Oh,
and
I embrace it. Believe me.
So look at this. There's a guy 9 months ago that said people thinking Korean players are actually good at FPS.
Holy shit.
And he was 9 months ago. I tagged him, and then recently I found him again in the thread, and I got downvoted to hell for being, such a tryhard about it. But I have to say, also him having the rogue flare, Jesus fucking,
perfect.
That is.
That's grade A. All right, so I have a story time right now. So last year at BlizzCon, I was able to go and watch the World Cup live. It was really fun, and in one of the post game interviews, there was a set of interviewers who were there from Machinima, and Machinima, of course, is a company with gaming. They do like a lot of YouTube content and stuff. And one of the interviewers from Machinima, because they only interviewed the winning team, so obviously Korea got interviewed like every match. So he got up and asked, who was it? He asked Tyrong. He was the Lucio player for the World Cup team, and he's coach of Africa Blue and Red. Yes. And he came out and asked him, "Hey, so what do you think it's like to be playing an FPS game now in Korea? Because we know that Koreans don't play FPS." And the look on Tyrong's face when he was asked this, oh my god, and was just like so done with this. And it was because me and a couple other people who I was there with were like, dude, why are you asking this question? This is so not true. Guys, Koreans have played FPS for a very long time. Just because they don't play Call of Duty and Counter-Strike does not mean they don't play FPS.
Definitely, yeah. That's, by the way, the same point this guy is making, so it just slots in perfectly.
It's,
But, okay, so we're already running overtime, right?
Yeah.
So...
No such thing.
In terms, I guess we can extend it as long as we stagger sports.
You should never have brought me on if you wanted to be short-winded.
Sure.
No, it's fine. It's like 2 hours right now. So
yes,
something like
but
so it's okay.
Okay, so here's my closing story. If we're talking about story time, and that's actually a love story. So we're talking about analysts that, bring value to the West, and I actually have like it's such a great story because you know Movistar Riders had to qualify for Takeover, right? And there's a relative drought in EU for tournaments, so for a team also sponsored that lives in a gaming house to not make it to a offline event, to the biggest probably that we've recently seen in all of the West, would have been a pretty big deal, right? Mm-hmm. And they had an analyst before, also during the time they came to power, to power in Europe.
They claimed the throne, yeah.
And the guy was called Demon. Now the problem was that the organization also, I mean, completely understandably couldn't pay for, you know, the gaming house, all the player salaries, and then an analyst and a coach too. So they had him as an analyst for like a week, and he's a French guy. You know what happened? The first qualifier they played, they obviously lost, I think, to X Cyclone, if I'm not mistaken, and didn't make it. And then in the second qualifier, Demon took his own car, drove from I think it was like 1,000 kilometers from France, then took a train all on his own dime.
Wow.
Rang the doorbell. No one in the team knew, and the door opened, and apparently was like, "Okay, let's get to Takeover, guys." And he practiced with them for Takeover, and they actually won the second qualifier. Isn't that a sick story, dude?
That's really sick. Yeah.
I really hope they eventually, you know, sign him on full time, and I hope there is money soon in the scene so we can, you know, see those kinds of stories more and also have them rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, if I was now to ask if there's anything more to add to this episode, you would probably go, yes, probably 6 hours. But I think I have to make the cut here. So do you have any closing words? Like an elevator conversation.
Korea's gonna win everything.
I'm
Get ready
so
for
pleased. You know, okay.
Like, what are they going to win? Apex, you mean?
They're gonna win everything.
Everything.
Everything that they're involved in, Korea's gonna win.
You just confirmed NBS Season 3, Apex Season 3.
Apex
NBS Season 3? Oh my god, the prophecy.
Okay. So, in that sense, let's cut it here. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, but I have to ask him. What happens if? What happens if Envious turned out to win Apex Season 3?
Oh, okay.
What happens?
You wanna wager?
I'll be very impressed, and I'll be interested to see how they do it.
Do we need a Lord bet here?
A Lord bet? No. Thorn's not on this show. We can't do Lord bets.
Dude, we were doing Lord bets like in 2008 or 9 in World of Warcraft. I mean, it probably was also his invention, but it happened before. There was famously a player called Lord Hydra because he won some stupid bet and was indefinitely called Lord. So, okay, so
yeah, that's a problem I see. For example, that right now you say Korea is going to win everything, but what happens if something upsets the statement? I mean, you also have.
Then I'm just gonna say Korean's gonna win everything.
After that.
Okay, no, because the whole thing is, I'm not saying that at all points in Overwatch's history, Korea will have the best single team in the world. What I am saying is at all points in Overwatch history, from now to forever, Korea as a region will be stronger.
Okay, I accept that. As a region, yeah. I mean,
and every time they go to an international event, the Korean teams will always seriously be a threat, and most likely win the event.
Yes.
Now you're tasting it. You said Korea will win everything. So if they lose anything in the process, then
hyperbole again.
I need to have to do something that shows that you were mistaken. Probably like have.
We got this recorded now. It's all fine. So seriously, let's cut it here. Thanks for watching. Bye.
See you next one.